Hi, my name is Dr. John Hughes. I'm going to talk to you about transcending aging. I'm a local osteopathic doctor near Aspen, Colorado, who's been exploring how to transcend aging or live in wellness until we are over 100 years old. I've been inspired by Petter Attia's best-selling book, Outlive, outliving our chronological age so that we can have a longer health span is the subject of this talk. I do have financial disclosure. I work closely with my local business, Aspen Integrative Medicine, and I have financial interest in promoting longevity and wellness medicine, as well as regenerative procedures among my patients. In this talk, I'm going to discuss the Four Horsemen, the four biggest killers of modern peoples. Medicine 3.0, the difference between lifespan and health span, as well as biggest contributors to wellness and longevity, how to access and assess and maximize your personal wellness, as well as wellness programs that help us transcend aging. How are you going to die? Is it going to be a car accident, infectious disease, predator, a trauma, a hero in a battle, or debilitated from a chronic disease? Or are you going to die peacefully in good health, healthy until perhaps you die? I think that's the goal of most of us, if not all of us. Unfortunately, what was causing death 150 years ago, which was mostly infectious disease or some other traumatic accident, we've now, that would lead to a fast death or quick death. Now we have what's called slow death, which are mostly due to the Four Horsemen, the cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer, and neurodegeneration, or Alzheimer's disease is what I mean by neurodegeneration. Now, the question is how do we overcome? We've overcome a lot of the causes of fast death, but now how do we overcome these slow death conditions? Medicine 1.0, is that the answer? In the old days, medicine was something, or disease was due to something in nature, or punishment from the gods, or a god. You know, that actually pre-medicine 1.0, punishment from the gods. You know, you were a sinner, you were cursed by a god or god, and now in medicine 1.0, that was actually a step up. Something in nature was causing this. Medicine 2.0, disease was due to bad air. We could fight disease with scientific method. Penicillin in the 1940s was incredible. Antiretrovirals in the 1990s was also very powerful for us. Unfortunately, what we came to believe in the 17th century was in a religion that is called naturalism. Naturalism is that knowledge is the religious belief that knowledge can only be discovered by the five senses. And there's even a society of naturalism or natural science that basically says the foundation stone of this scientific religion is that the primary means of understanding nature and human nature is through science. Thus, the scientific method governs. And Attia himself is very wedded to the scientific method. However, this is the medicine 2.0. The science leads to that medicine. The medicine 2.0 is not what's going to help us transcend aging. The problem also too is science, much of it is actually potentially up to half may be untrue. And this isn't my words. This is the editor of the Lancet journal, one of the most prestigious medical journals out there. It says that 30% of all studies tend to be wrong or exaggerated, even from the most widely cited controlled trials in the world's most prestigious medical schools. 5 out of 6 non-randomized studies are errant, and even 47 out of 53 cancer drug studies are not even replicable. This is a problem. The science of medicine 2.0 doesn't lead to full truths about what to do with our lives. It's also very hard to study aging. Aging is something that might happen over 80 or 100 years. There's multiple variables. We can't always assess one drug or one pill that's going to help us live longer or maybe make us die sooner. Let's talk about longevity. Longevity has two components. Lifespan is how well you live or how long you live, and health span is how well you live. How to live better is really the subject. of this talk, wellness or health span, is ultimately how to be strong, fit, beautiful, intelligent, as well as connected spiritually and physically to your source. It's the Aspen idea, actually, since Walter Pepke developed that or first pronounced that in the 1950s. The key is you are the medicine. You are the passive. Never. You are the participant. You're never passive in this kind of medicine. That's what differentiates Medicine 3.0, which is focused on wellness and health span, from Medicine 2.0, which is how do we manipulate your body. Ultimately, the goal is not just to live longer, and that's why this is focused on health span, because this is the traditional trajectory of modern people's lives. Around 50 or 60, you start to decline traditionally. With a little bit of modern medicine 2.0, you get a little bit longer life. You manage your blood pressure, you maybe protect your kidneys, do your part, lifestyle, and good exercise, good diet. You might be able to do better. But the ideal is that you live a long, healthy life. You don't decline at all until you're ready to die, and that's 100 plus. That's where we want to see. So you want to have increased vitality, maximize vitality until you're 100 plus years old. That's really if I could sum up the whole lecture, that's what we're trying to do. And transcending aging equals squaring the curve. How do we do this? What are the biggest contributors to wellness and longevity? Well, these are all very simple. Many of us know this. It's just how to implement it, right? It's exercise, fitness, quality sleep, diet, nutrition, mental and emotional, spiritual health, and that can be family health, for example, minimizing toxic inputs, and everything from EMF to pesticides to heavy metals, you name it, mold toxins, and fostering community. I think these last three I won't go into much, but I think they're very key for us to also plug into. You could have the perfect diet, perfect sleep, perfect exercise, and still die soon because of all the baggage here. What does exercise do? It strengthens the heart, improves mitochondrial function, helps us metabolize glucose and fat, improves muscle mass to protect the body from falls, increases brain-derived neurotrophic factor, and preserves brain vasculature and volume. If exercise were a drug we could just take, it would be the most important drug. It would be the drug we would pay thousands and millions of dollars for. It's the most important thing we can do. And I think our bodies are made to move. To have this sedentary life is definitely probably the biggest problem for many of us. Attia writes, muscle is the largest glycogen storage sink in the body. As we create more mitochondria, we increase our capacity for disposing of that stored fuel rather than having it end up as fat or remaining in our plasma. So getting rid of cholesterol as fat or triglycerides as fat in our plasma, as well as belly fat, as well as liver fat or other visceral fat, is really key. And I would say in some way that may be the key to aging. If all we do is exercise and you don't get anything else out of this, cardiovascular exercise as well as muscle building exercise, weight training, you'll get some improvements, if not all the improvements that you need. All right, the problem is most of us are not in the green BMI level. So if you are 5'10" male and you weigh 100, you're 5'10", 5 feet 10 inches and you weigh 160 or even up to 170, you're in a good BMI. If you weigh 180, you're overweight. 68% or more of Americans are either overweight or obese. There's a large and even greater percentage of adults and children that are becoming in this obese category. That's very unfortunate, and I would say is a large part of why we are dying very quickly from slow death, or very consistently from slow death. All right, so VO2 max is probably the most important, and Attia says even for Alzheimer's, or I would say for for almost every disease, assessing your VO2 max is the most important assessment you can do to understand where you are in your biological age, as far as where are you in your ability to live a longer life. And I've taken this from a chart you can find online. My goal would be to see a male that is 35 to 50 years old with a VO2 max of 50 plus, 50 to 75 years old, VO2 max of 45 plus, and 75 to 100 years old, of 40 plus. Healthy women are generally 5 points lower. An average male in the US might have a VO2 max of around 40. I think that's too low. If you're going to live a long life up to 100 plus, you need to start. If you consider that many people decline, I'm not saying all people will decline in VO2 max as they age, but many people will, then you need to have a VO2 max that's 50 plus if you're going to have a 40 plus. 50 plus when you're 35 to 50, if you're going to have a VO2 max that's 40 plus when you're 100. Endurance athletes are high, 60 to 70, even 80 for some of the highest, most efficient endurance athletes. However, muscle building, you can't see this, may even trump cardiovascular fitness. We'll just skip to this next. The other really important thing about muscle strength is your hand grip strength, your ability to grab and hold something is directly related to your dementia incidence. And that's really not just hand grip, but it's ability to grab weight, lift weight. The muscle tone of your body is directly related to your incidence of dementia. So right down here, higher hand grip strength in kilograms, less incidence of dementia, lower. It doesn't even matter your age. Sleep. What does sleep do? Why is it so important? Sleep is important because it lowers glucose, improves our brain function, improves endurance, VO2 max, strength, lowers heart attack risk, and improves memory and emotional health. And we all have to sleep. Why do we sleep? Some people think, oh, we don't really need to sleep that much. Well, that's an error that Attia talks about very, very much in depth. He says sleep is when our brain heals itself. While we're in deep sleep, our brains are essentially cleaning house, sweeping away intracellular waste that can build up between neurons. And he says, all things equal, it appears that sleeping just 5 to 6 hours versus 8 hours accounts for about a 10 to 20 milligram per deciliter jump in peak glucose response. That's incredible. And he even says the MR data confirm that sleeping less than 6 hours a night was associated with about a 20% higher risk of heart attack. It's incredible. I mean, what sleep does to our glucose, our ability to exercise, our ability to strength train. However, insomnia affects 30 to 50% of older adults. And there's ample research showing that sleep disturbances often precede the diagnosis of dementia by 7 years. They may even appear before cognitive decline. It may be that lack of sleep is actually responsible for our cognitive decline. If we don't spend enough time in deep sleep, amyloid and tau protein builds up among neurons. So as we know, Alzheimer's is very much characterized by amyloid and tau protein buildup. Whether that's the cause of Alzheimer's to be debated. If you want a healthy brain, in summary, you got to sleep enough. Sleep hygiene, deep sleep is key. 7 to 8.5 hours is the goal. You want enough REM as well as non-REM deep sleep. If you're around computers, lights, electronics, if you have too much coffee or food 3 hours before bedtime or too soon before bedtime, the ideal is better than 3 hours. Or ideally you're not using Lunesta, Ambien, Valium, or lorazepam, which are some of the most common and popular sleep medications, but instead you're using potentially something natural or not having to use any medication. Attia really likes the drug trazodone in small doses. Ashwagandha, tryptophan, or theanine are some of my favorites. And a lot of times people are waking up at 3 a.m. They should do some charcoal or magnesium to help improve the peristalsis of their small intestine and large intestine, as well as help absorb the toxins that may be coming out of the liver, which will kick on oftentimes about 3 a.m. Anybody who's had hot flashes, they'll know that that's a very common time to wake up. You also have to rule out sleep apnea. Those 68% of Americans that have extra belly fat, extra tires around their belly, they have, for every pound of belly fat, they're having the equivalent of about 3 pounds around their neck. So really important sleep hygiene. Avoid lights, turn off lights, or remove electronics from the room. Don't drink coffee or food any less than 3 hours before bedtime. You got to get that deep sleep. Sleep monitors are good. I do like Aura rings or other things. Circle is another one. Even Apple Watch or a Garmin watch can help. Sleep study, or Epworth sleep scale, and this is a sleep scale. I won't go too much into depth with it, but if you're likely to fall asleep when you're sitting and reading, watching TV, or sitting in a meeting, or in a passenger, or in a car, or just lying down to rest and you just easily fall asleep, you're probably not getting enough sleep at night. Especially sitting after lunch in a car. I mean, if you fall asleep in traffic, there's a definite deficiency in your sleep hygiene or your actual sleep amount or your deep sleep amount. All right, food. Let's talk about this. Food is another huge contributor to our longevity, as we all know. And Attia is very good about talking about the SAD diet and the standard American diet, which is basically the largest food group, the middle of the grocery store, and that's where you'll find plenty of junk food. So the goal is to eliminate that. And in place of that, consume essential proteins and vegetables. The quality of the food is just as important as the quantity. I think a lot of patients aren't getting enough nutrients, so they consume more and more food. How do you avoid being sad? So like I said, middle of the grocery store, what's there? Like I said, largest food group in America, pretty much just carbs and processed carbs. Cookies, bread, cereals, crackers, cakes. We all crave this sometimes if we're really hungry. Maybe it's good sometimes, but most of the time, processed packaged foods are full of sugar, highly refined carbs with low fiber, processed oils, and very densely caloric. So what that means is these foods are going to make you gain weight and be well into that obese and overweight category. The problem with the SAD is it creates more fat storage, impair your glucose metabolism. It leads to diabetes, cardiovascular disease, elevated triglycerides and HDL, as well as ApoB, Alzheimer's, and it basically feeds cancer. So if you want to do nothing else but exercise and stop eating the SAD, you'll improve. The problem is the SAD is everywhere. You go out to eat, it's everywhere. The key is to replace the SAD with essential protein. What does that mean? So you want to eat amino acid rich foods. Protein comes from the Greek word proteos, meaning primary food, primary nutrition. Protein is what builds our muscles and tendons and liver, organs, heart. It's what builds us up. The USDA for protein, RDA for protein, US RDA for protein is 0.8 grams per kilogram of body weight. And that's just to stay alive. It's best to strive for 1.6 grams per kilogram of body weight, which is 2 times the RDA. And I think Attia even says you can go up to 1 gram per pound of body weight. I think that's maybe too much for some patients, especially if it's animal protein, and it can be hard on your kidneys if you have kidney issues. But if you think about that, let's just take 80% of 1 gram per pound. If you weigh 120 pounds, then that's roughly 90 to 100 grams of protein. That's 2.5 chicken breasts. And that's for adult female, for example. That's a pretty good amount of protein to help you ultimately stay more satisfied, satiated, to lower liver fat, lower glucose, better insulin sensitive, and ultimately build your body, build your muscles up so you don't injure yourself as you get older. The other key is the absorption of protein. Certain proteins are going to have higher amounts of absorption, and you also sometimes need to get enough digestive enzymes or betaine hydrochloride to absorb protein. Many adults don't make enough, or they're taking what's called a proton pump inhibitor, so the acidity in their stomach is reduced and they don't absorb protein or minerals very well. A 6-ounce serving of chicken, fish, or meat will provide you about 40 to 45 grams. So for 150-pound male, you need about 3 servings of 6-ounce animal protein per day. So I said that for females, about 2.5 chicken breasts. For a male, you need about 3 to 3.5. That doesn't mean you need chicken breast. Chicken breast may or may not be the best source. What we found is that a lot of patients think that they can eat just plant protein, and there's nothing wrong, and I think you can. There's some vegans that can eat plenty of plant protein, but the problem is a lot of plant protein is tied up in indigestible fiber, so there's less bioavailability, and ultimately there's less of the essential amino acids, methionine, lysine, and tryptophan, which leads to ultimately less protein synthesis that we make in our own body. So when you take in a protein, it doesn't just turn into your own muscle, right? It has to be broken down to amino acids, and then the body, with the intelligence of mRNA, actually puts those proteins back into the proper form that your body needs. The problem, and partly because plants are just much different than us in some ways, the overall quality of plant protein is significantly lower than that from animal products. For example, we talk about protein utilization as this, and this is what's commonly said in the world of nutrition, net nitrogen utilization. Eggs, chicken eggs, potentially duck eggs or other eggs, have some of the highest protein utilization of anything in the body, for example. Eggs are if you eat an egg, which has about 6 to 7 grams, a large egg, it's hopefully pasture raised, humanely treated chicken from a humanely treated chicken, you will get about 6 out of 10 of those nitrogen molecules absorbed and utilized by your body to build you up. The rest is excreted through your kidneys or through your feces. It's just wasted. So the efficiency is 60% here. Meat, chicken, fish, 30 to 40%. Soy, which is the highest quality plant protein. Not that I recommend too much soy, because much of it, 90% or more, is GMO, and it has a lot of estrogens and xenoestrogens and pesticides in it. But organic soy, 17 to 20%. If you're going to eat a vegan diet, a good quality high plant protein is good to help you absorb the nutrients. And the deal is, if you're going to get up to 90 to 100 grams of protein in a day, you're going to need a lot more of this soy. You're going to need to eat a lot more, and that's fine if you can tolerate that, or if you're exercising enough. There's an amino acid that's used by Tour de France riders. It's also known as MAP, major amino acid profile. It's the 8 essential amino acids. It's made from bacteria in a lab. This is a supplement. It's got 99% efficiency of net nitrogen utilization. If you're going to be a vegan, I highly recommend that you get enough of the major amino acids from some extra supplementation. Protein is protease. It's one of the most primary things we can consume as a macronutrient in our diet. Dangers. We start eating animals widely in the industrial America that we have since the early 1900s, 1940s is when pesticides became big. The problem, pesticides cause cancer, heavy metals are in farm-raised fish, GMO corn causes a lot of problems as well. So we have to be really careful. If you want to watch a great film, watch GMO OMG. It's fascinating Netflix documentary on the problems with GMOs. It's very hard to avoid this, and that's why I'm very careful about telling many patients to eat large quantities of animal proteins. We know pesticides cause cancer. As far as the horsemen go, in developing countries, the non-Western world, maybe Africa or other countries, pesticides are the largest killer of most humans. It's really sad. Only consume animals fed in their natural habitat with organic diets, living in real pastures if possible, and do your best to select those types of animals. And if you have the ability to hunt or eat wild game, that's always better too. So I really like this, not to harp on protein so much, but this is from Yoshinori Ohsumi, a 2006 Nobel Prize winner. He says, all things go through a state of relentless and ephemeral flux. Life is an equilibrium state between synthesis and degradation of old damaged proteins. So let's talk about vegans. I think vegans live healthy, long lives as long as they get enough vegetable proteins because they don't have as many denatured proteins. However, they don't always look so good, and they don't always have the muscle strength that many animal protein eaters have. So I think the danger of eating too much animal protein is you get these old, damaged, misfolded proteins. So we're in this balance, and the answer that Osumi came up with as far as eating proteins or not eating enough proteins or eating vegan or eating animals is finding that ability to go through these states where we don't have any protein, and we encourage something called autophagy, and this is, fasting basically, or calorie restriction for certain periods, as so our body can recycle the old damaged proteins. I think a lot of meat eaters forget this, and a lot of vegans sometimes don't realize that we need protein. So it's the balance. A major cause of aging is the progressive accumulation of damaged macromolecules or proteins and components within cells, oxidized, misfolded, cross-linked, or aggregated proteins. The health of an individual depends on the ability to eliminate these old and dysfunctional cellular components. What helps you eliminate all that? And this is from a book called The Spring Chicken. Exercise, intermittent fasting, calorie restriction, all those types of things can be very helpful. And I think what we've come to in the modern era is a world where we don't eat like our ancestors. Sometimes the ancestors, they go out and hunt, they eat for 4 hours. That's what they're doing for part of their day. Then they're not eating. They might not eat, just as 20 hours, but might not eat for 2 days. And what happens is the body goes through this fasting state, and it goes into ketosis, and then after that it goes into autophagy, which basically is the cells phagocytizing themselves. They basically eat up themselves because they don't want to waste the energy to feed. And what's happened with modern day is we have a refrigerator and we start to eat 3 meals a day. And there's nothing wrong inherently with that. And if we're hungry, we should probably try to eat. However, we get cravings that may not be healthy, whether it's for carbs or other things that aren't always the best. And we lose the amount of autophagy. So we age because we're actually overfed, and we get these diet, whether it's carbs or whether it's protein. Sometimes we're overfeeding ourselves, and we get a very large expression of mTOR, and we get mTOR syndrome. And I think a large percentage of modern humans, if not most of us in modern culture, myself included, may have some mTOR. So blocking mTOR, which is something that can be done with a drug called rapamycin, is something I'll discuss more. It can push us back into this increased autophagy type of condition, which I think is ultimately healthy. You have to eat enough protein, you have to get enough calories, and then you have to fast and let go of some of that. And even traditional cultures, many cultures have had days, 2 days a week sometimes, Sunday, and sometimes hours, of the day, 16 to 20 hours where we don't eat. And that's very natural and probably healthy for us. Other macros, fats and carbs. All right. If you're going to eat fats, probably, and this is popularized the Mediterranean diet as a longevity. If you're going to eat fat, monounsaturated fats, largely what we think of as organic extra virgin olive oil, is really important. Saturated fats in small quantities, such as beef tallow, grass-fed ghee, even butter, can be safe for many humans as long as you're not over. These are great for cooking. Coconut oil is another one for cooking in the oven or other things, because you don't want to put olive oil in the oven because it can oxidize eventually. You can stir fry it with olive oil, and some people like avocado oil. I'm not a huge fan because it's hard to find it in organic, but those are examples of monounsaturated fats. What you want to avoid is trans fats. This is what was in Crisco, which I don't think you can even buy anymore. Some margarine, they've removed a lot of it from that, but trans fats have been eliminated just because of their cardiovascular risk to patients. And then you have the PUFAs, polyunsaturated fatty acids, canola, soy, safflower, sunflower. These have been marketed as healthy oils. However, they're very easy to oxidize, and they're full of omega-6s, which can create huge amounts of inflammation. The linoleic acid is also a problem because it incorporates with the LDL and creates oxidation there too. So be very careful. You also have to be careful with keto diets because they can raise triglycerides and LDL. Carbohydrates, you have to be careful even with so-called healthy carbohydrates. Oatmeal and rice can have a very high glycemic index. Attia writes, rice and oatmeal are surprisingly glycemic, meaning they create a sharp rise in glucose, which ultimately helps you, which causes spikes in insulin, and then ultimately will make you add fat to your tissues if you're not exercising. Despite not being particularly refined, it's also more surprising that brown rice is only slightly less glycemic than long grain white rice. What about fruit, especially dried fruit? Dried fruit is very high glycemic, so be careful. If you're going to eat fruit, I usually recommend my patients stick with berries as much as you can, fruit that's in season, and fruit in its natural form. Don't drink fruit juice, and try to eat the fiber you have with your fruit in its natural state. Back to seed oils, most common are corn, soy, safflower, canola, sunflower. Major causes of heart disease. Causes the LDL to oxidize. Unoxidized LDL does not cause atherosclerosis. These seed oils they're largely toxic because of the linoleic acid. Canola oil, which is basically from rapeseed oil, which is toxic. Some of the acid's been removed from it. That's what it means. I think canola oil, low acid, but it's basically this linoleic acid that's so dangerous. It's just a very powerful inflammatory omega-6 oil. And so if you're going to eat these oils, balance them out with a bunch of fish oil. But then why are we doing that? So my suggestion is avoid that. Seed oils, however, are in almost all restaurant foods and packaged foods. Go to the middle of the grocery store, you'll see this in every corn chip and almost every packaged food that has some kind of processing to it. How to assess your wellness. So we've been able to, in our modern world, come up with some really unique screenings based on the breath, things we can do with continuous blood sugar through a patch on your skin, and then blood labs. And then we're going to talk about the PNOE. This basically is a Greek word that means breath, levels health, and function health. These are some of the offerings we have in our clinic, and we hope that more people will do this, whether it's our clinic or other places. What are we doing with this? So with PNOE, we're looking at VO2 max, resting metabolic rate. You can do all this with the breath, heart fitness, movement economy, fat, carbohydrate burn. It's fascinating just from a breath test, about a 12-minute breath test, what you can assess about your heart, your cells, your brain, your lungs. And that's really what we're hoping to do for many of our patients in the future. There's a video link here, and you should be able to click that video link and watch it. But PNOE, this is the video is about a Men's Health article that did the test. So what can we measure with just a breath test? Biological age, we can measure VO2 max, we can measure metabolic rate, and your ability to burn fat. Like I said, back to VO2 max, this is probably the most, according to Attia, the most important aspect of your aging process. How big your lungs are and how well efficiently can they transfer oxygen to your blood. Lung fitness, heart fitness, recovery capacity, all that can be assessed through a simple test. And so, yeah, where are we? If your VO2 max is high, you're going to have a lower biological age. If your fat burn efficiency is low, then you're going to have a higher biological age. So metabolic rate is high, you're going to have a lower. We can basically help you understand where you are as far as your chronology based on your fitness and your ability to oxygenate your tissues. Perfusion, managing glucose, if that perfusion basically just means your oxygen delivery to your tissues, is ultimately what's going to determine how well you live. So back to glucose, there's a company called Levels Health here. What Levels Health can do is give you a continuous readout on how well you can manage your blood sugar. You can assist and maximize your daily activities through diet, metabolic, and look at your diet. You can look at your metabolic health, fitness, as well as help you just naturally lose weight. This is what it looks like. That's why I have this picture of this woman here. There's an app on your phone. You buy this little device, sticks on your arm. It has a little little catheter that goes into your blood, and it will tell you your blood sugar in real time. It actually takes about 20 minutes to assess what your blood sugar. But the goal, if you look at this chart, is when is your blood sugar spiking, and when is it over what the normal value is. And the goal is not to have these spikes. And maybe if you get excited or you're going to exercise, that's different. But if you're having regular spikes with what you eat, then you're in danger of adding fat. Levels gives you some healthy options in place of what you might be doing instead of oatmeal or something like that. Chia pudding, you have to be careful with too much chia because it is a seed. The other thing that you can assess with this, you can assess your A1C overall, your fasting insulin, which is a great measurement of your ability to burn fat, and your obesity, triglycerides, ApoB, as well as uric acid. All very important for helping understand how you metabolize glucose. Function health. Blood labs are done everywhere, every major hospital, everywhere. What this company has done, and they've been, I think, basically originally started or endorsed by Mark Hyman. There's 100+ lab tests for major biological functions: heart, thyroid, immune, autoimmune, kidney. There's metabolic health, including biological age, male and female hormones, pancreas, assessors, blood labs, urine, electrolytes, heavy metal. It's incredible what you can do for, I think, a cost of $4.99. And then that actually gives you 60 other lab tests at 6 months follow-up. It's incredible what you can do. You can get on functionhealth.com and find out. Just Google that. And you should be able to do that locally in almost every state. How to maximize your wellness. We've come up with programs that include some of the unique offerings I've talked about. This is called the Regenesis Wellness Assessment. We've been doing, for every patient that's willing to do it, PNOE, which has 23 biomarkers, the levels, continuous glucose monitoring, function health labs, functional genomics. So let's say, hey, my body at DNA level is mutated. If you don't know that, you may keep eating certain foods that may not be healthy for you. Epigenetic testing, this is how well your genes create certain things in response to the environment. Urine screening for heavy metals and mold, viral testing for Lyme and Epstein-Barr, other tick-borne illnesses or things that people may be just living with. The Wavi brain scan, which is it's a functional EEG technology that's really good for assessing the brain in a very non-invasive way. Cardiac calcium scoring. Anybody that has family history of cardiac disease should do this, as well as carotid IMT. NutriVal, this is the profile of all the nutrients that are in your system, including proteins. GI Maps, this looks at your gut bacteria, food allergy. Galleri cancer screen, this is your likelihood of getting any cancer, or if you have any predisposed cancer cells or existing cancer cells around. Alzheimer's screening test, there's a lab test now that's been come out within the past year or two from Quest. Just a blood test that can tell what your risk of Alzheimer's. The function health actually tells you your ApoE status, whether it's 2, 3, or 4. So it's really important to do both of those. Circular sleep and activity monitor, DEXA bone scan for your bone health, and I think EMF screening. EMF is probably one of the most dangerous things we don't even talk about most of the time in modern medicine, but it's hugely important. What else do we do? Concierge medical care. We want to be there for our patients at least once a month. We want to follow them. Health and weight loss coaching is so important. Cardio and weight training, lifting weight training is super important. You can't just do one. You've got to do both weights and cardio, and weights are so important, just even not only for men, but also for women. Stat here, only 8.9% of Americans actually do any workouts. So very low stat. Hormone replacement therapy for lower testosterone, peptide therapy for boosting things like growth hormone, healing from injuries, nutritional and pharmaceutical supplementation, genetic nutritional consultations or counseling. This can be very important if you do have a significant amount of DNA mutations that reduce your ability to metabolize foods. For example, I'm not supposed to eat dairy or gluten, and very easy to see on a genetic profile. And this is just a saliva test. IV therapy, which is really important for heavy metals or to chelate those out. Nutrition, platelet plasma for injuries. If you have an ankle sprain or a knee injury and you can't run very well, then it's probably, or hike or bike, then it's probably important to get that fixed so you can improve your VO2 max. And peripheral blood stem cells, which we use for the brain and for other musculoskeletal injuries, joint injuries, and if you want to avoid potentially having a hip replacement or knee replacement. PRP and stem cells, I've talked a little bit about those: arthritic joints, traumatic brain injuries, chronic sprains, degenerative disc disease, or chronic sports injuries, even carpal tunnel or almost any tendon and ligament injury in your back or neck or anywhere can respond very well. Whiplash, rotator cuff tears. This is just a plug for my clinic since we do a lot of this on a regular basis. It's really important to do this with a skilled practitioner. And not everybody that does PRP and stem cells are the same. There's people who play the piano really well, and there's people that know how to play Mary Had a Little Lamb. Ultimately, is there a drug out there that can help us live longer? And the one I really, really like is a drug called rapamycin. It fine-tunes the immune system. As we talked about mTOR syndrome that almost everybody has, rapamycin suppresses mTOR. So mTOR, if you can suppress it, you can help prevent type 2 diabetes, cancer growth, inflammation, and fat deposition. I even saw cancer.gov talks about rapamycin as suppressing or preventing cancer. It's out there now, and I think people are learning how important this drug is. Where did it come from? It's actually not really a drug in my opinion. It's just a soil extract that they found on Easter Island back in the 1960s. Studies have shown that rapamycin can extend the lifespan of worms, yeast, flies, and mites up to about 23%. So it also has an anti-BC effect, and it encourages autophagy, which is that cellular recycling process that happens when we don't eat as much or we exercise enough and we are at a calorie restricted state. So it kind of helps us mimic that calorie restriction state. So to kind of start to close this out is we have a silo model of disease right now. We have cancer, which is treated by oncologists. We have cardiovascular disease, you have cardiologists, diabetes, endocrinologists, and you have neurologists trying to. The problem with this is it's time to stop treating these like when they happen. It's time to start preventing these. And what we're ultimately preventing is just one disease. It's just aging. It's just degeneration of our body is the best way to say it. And how can we ultimately help our minds and bodies stay healthy? We have to treat this preemptively in a proactive, preventive way. And that's going to take medicine 3.0. That's going to take the things that we've talked about, Regenesis model. It's going to help us lose weight. It's going to help us look better. This comes out of a book that Bill Gifford wrote called Spring Chicken. Attia took a lot of what he wrote from this book, Spring Chicken. And he says that the surest way to look old is to try to look young. And I think a lot of people are going after anti-aging from the outside in. And the whole point of this is to say, hey, let's avoid aging by working on our inner bodies. Let's exercise. Let's eat enough proper, healthy food. Let's sleep enough. Let's avoid mTOR by not eating all the time. And let's manage these things in a proactive, preventative way. And that's really lifestyle, ultimate wellness medicine. And it will help us not have to worry about weight, not have to worry about, getting as many wrinkles or muscle degeneration. So that's where we're going with this. And ultimately the goal is to just treat aging or even just to stay healthy. So in conclusion, how are you going to live and die? Medicine 2.0 isn't enough to help you live well or prevent aging. Living well requires that you assess and maximize your health span. Medicine 3.0, and what I've termed Regenesis model of health or of wellness, will help you live longer and better. Feel free to visit my website, regenesis.com. You can see all the programs and therapies we've put together. Even if you do one part of it, you'll be accelerating your health. And really glad to talk to everyone here. Thank you for your attention. If you have any other questions, feel free to contact me at this website or if you Google my website or my name in Aspen, Colorado, you'll find how to get in touch with my office. There is a few slides at the end in the appendix. If you'd like to look more at those, feel free to do that as well. So, thanks very much.